Have you ever looked at your grown children, the ones you spent a lifetime raising, nurturing and sacrificing for, and felt a quiet, unsettling shift? Not anger, not open conflict, but a distance. A sense that your place in their lives isn't quite what it used to be. Maybe they brush off your advice with a polite smile. Maybe they dismiss your concerns as old-fashioned. Maybe they even talk down to you as if somewhere along the way, you stopped being a source of wisdom and became a burden they have to tolerate. If you've ever felt this sting, you are not alone. In fact, it's one of the quiet heartbreaks that many parents experience as they grow older. You spend decades putting them first, cheering at their baseball games, staying up late, helping with homework, sacrificing vacations and new cars so they could have a better life. You did it out of love, not for recognition, but now when you simply ask to be heard, to be valued, to be respected, it sometimes feels like you're speaking into a void, and it hurts deeply. You may find yourself wondering, did I fail somehow? Am I asking for too much? Is this just what aging feels like? Becoming invisible in the lives you helped create? Let me tell you something important. You are not invisible and you did not fail. What's happening isn't about your worth. It's about the way roles and expectations shift as time moves forward, and about how sometimes, without realizing it, both parents and children fall into patterns that chip away at respect. Here's the truth: you cannot force your children to respect you by reminding them of everything you've done. You cannot win their respect through arguments, guilt, or emotional appeals. But there is good news. You can earn back their respect quietly, powerfully, by making a few subtle shifts within yourself, not by chasing after them, not by fighting with them, but by standing strong in who you are, with dignity, with self-respect, and with quiet, unwavering confidence. Today, I'm going to walk you through exactly how to do that. We'll explore 6 powerful shifts you can make, not overnight, but gently, steadily, that can change the way your children see you. Changes that don't require yelling, pleading, or resentment, but that instead rebuild the foundation of respect naturally over time. And here's the beautiful part. When you approach these changes with calmness and courage, not only do you invite more respect, you also invite deeper, more genuine connection. Because at the end of the day, your relationship with your children isn't just about what you demand from them, it's about what you inspire within them. So if you're ready to stop feeling invisible and start reclaiming the place of honor you deserve, stay with me. Because in just a moment, we'll dive into the first powerful shift you can make starting today. Now, before we dive into the solutions, let's take a moment to set the stage. If you're here, it means you care. You care about the relationships you've built over a lifetime, and you're willing to take thoughtful, courageous steps to strengthen them. You're not looking for a fight. You're not trying to control your children's lives. You're simply ready to reclaim the respect, the dignity, and the connection that every parent deserves, no matter how many birthdays have passed. And that's exactly what we're going to do together today. In this video, I'll share with you 6 powerful shifts, simple but transformative changes in how you carry yourself, how you interact, and how you nurture your own sense of worth. Each shift is designed to help you stop chasing respect and start inspiring it. Set healthy boundaries without breaking relationships. Rebuild a life so full and vibrant that your children can't help but notice and admire. Some of these ideas might challenge you, some might feel surprisingly freeing, but I promise you this: if you take them to heart, they have the power to change, not just how your children treat you, but how you feel about yourself. So if you're ready to begin this new chapter standing tall, strong, and quietly commanding respect, let's start with the very first and perhaps most important shift. There's a particular kind of heartbreak that few people talk about. It's the ache of feeling like you're chasing the approval of the very people you once carried in your arms, taught to walk, stayed up worrying about when they came home late. You don't mean to chase it, you don't even realize you're doing it at first. But somewhere along the way, you find yourself bending a little too far, saying yes when you want to say no, holding back your true feelings just to keep the peace. You tell yourself it's not a big deal. I just want to keep the family together. If I give a little more, maybe they'll appreciate me more. But here's the painful truth. The more you chase their approval, the less they respect you. Respect doesn't grow from sacrifice. It grows from self-respect. When you put your own needs, feelings, and boundaries aside to make your children happy, when you silence your own voice to avoid rocking the boat, You unintentionally teach them that your needs matter less, and over time, they start to believe it. I once knew a woman named Margaret, a vibrant, independent spirit in her younger years. She had built a wonderful life running her own business, traveling the world raising her children with love and strength. But as she grew older, something shifted. Margaret began letting her children make all the decisions. She rearranged her schedule to fit theirs. She kept her opinions to herself, even when she disagreed. She excused their sharp words and brushed off their dismissive tones. "I just want to keep the family close," she would say, with a weary smile. But what happened? The more she gave, the more they took. They didn't consult her anymore. They didn't seek her advice or value her time. They came to see her as someone who would always bend, always agree, always stay silent. Margaret thought she was preserving peace, but in truth she was losing her voice, and with it the respect she had once commanded effortlessly. If you recognize a little of yourself in Margaret's story, please know this. You don't need to demand respect with angry words. You don't need to fight for your place. You simply need to stop acting like you need their approval to feel worthy. It starts with small but powerful shifts, saying no when your heart says no, speaking your mind even when it's uncomfortable, valuing your own time, energy, and feelings as much as theirs. Respect flows naturally toward those who respect themselves first. It might feel scary at first, it might even cause some friction, but ultimately it sets a new, healthier tone, one where your children are invited to see you, not just as a parent who loves them, but as a whole dignified person who deserves to be honored. Now you might be wondering, what if even after standing your ground, they still dismiss your words? Well, the next shift we're about to explore can be even more powerful because it's not about what you say, it's about how you carry yourself. Let's move forward. There's a natural instinct deep in every parent's heart that rises up when you feel dismissed. When your child interrupts you, talks over you, or shrugs off your opinions, everything inside you wants to speak louder, to explain harder, to make them understand. You want to say, after everything I've done for you, you should respect me, you should listen, you should care. But here's something important to understand. Respect cannot be argued into existence. The harder you fight to be heard, the more you raise your voice list, your sacrifices defend your worth, the more you unintentionally teach them that they hold the power. Because when you argue for respect, you're already standing on the defensive. And respect is never born from defensiveness. It's born from presence, from calm, from unwavering dignity. Let me tell you about Frank, a retired teacher I once knew. Frank had spent 40 years commanding classrooms full of teenagers with grace and authority. He knew how to earn attention, how to guide with firmness and kindness. But at home, something strange happened. His grown children began treating him like an afterthought. They would roll their eyes at his advice, laugh off his concerns, interrupt him mid-sentence without a second thought. At first, Frank tried to fight back. He would argue his points louder, remind them of his experience, demand that they take him seriously, but the more he pushed, the worse it got. And then one afternoon, something shifted. Frank realized, I never had to yell to earn respect in my classroom. I earned it by how I carried myself. Why would it be any different with my children? So he made a quiet decision. No more arguing, no more fighting for attention, no more trying to prove himself. Instead, Frank started showing up differently. When his children interrupted, he didn't snap back. He simply stopped speaking, waited and finished his thought with calm authority when they were ready to listen. When they dismissed his advice, he didn't debate. He simply smiled, spoke his piece with dignity, and let his words stand for themselves. He stopped chasing their validation and started embodying his own. And you know what? Slowly, subtly, things changed. His children noticed. They noticed the strength in his calmness. They noticed the respect he gave himself, and they began to mirror it back. Not because he forced them to, but because they couldn't help but respect someone who clearly respected himself. You see, dignity speaks louder than arguments ever could. If you want your children to respect you, don't try to force it through words. Show them through your actions what true respect looks like. Calm when dismissed, steady when provoked, unshaken in your worth. Respect is inspired, not demanded, in the beauty of this shift. It doesn't require them to change first. It only asks that you stand tall in who you are and let the quiet strength of your example do the talking. Now you might be thinking, what if it still feels lonely when you stop chasing, stop arguing? What if the ache for connection remains? In the next step, we'll explore how to protect your heart by reclaiming your emotional independence. Let's keep going. There's a quiet kind of loneliness that many parents feel, but few ever speak about. It's the ache that comes from waiting. Waiting for the phone to ring. Waiting for a visit that doesn't come. Waiting for a thank you, a hug, a small sign that you still matter deeply to the children you once held so close. You don't expect grand gestures. You don't need constant praise. You just want to feel remembered, valued, loved. And when those moments don't come as often as they used to, it's easy to start reaching out more, calling a little too often, offering a little too much, hoping to pull them back into closeness. But here's a hard truth. The more you lean on your children for emotional fulfillment, the more they may start to pull away. It's not because they don't love you. It's because when love starts to feel like an obligation, something they have to provide to keep you happy, it becomes heavy. People, even our own children, are drawn to those who carry their own emotional weight, those who radiate quiet strength, those who find fulfillment within themselves, not through the approval or attention of others. Let me share a story. I once knew a woman named Helen, a sweet, devoted mother who had spent her entire life pouring love into her children. As they grew older and busier with their own lives, Helen felt a growing emptiness. She missed their calls. She longed for their visits. At first, she would call them herself often. She would remind them how much she missed them, how lonely the house felt without them. She meant well. Every word came from love. But over time, something unexpected happened. Her children began avoiding her calls. They started visiting less. What Helen intended as an open hand of love began to feel to them like a weight, and Helen felt even lonelier than before. One day, after a particularly painful holiday season, spent mostly alone, Helen made a decision. She would stop waiting. She would stop chasing. Instead, she would build a life that was full, with or without their constant attention. She joined a gardening club. She began volunteering at the local library. She made new friends, picked up old hobbies, took long walks in the sunshine, and something incredible happened. Without the invisible pull of guilt or obligation, her children started calling again. Not because they had to, but because they wanted to. They saw a woman full of life, not a woman waiting for them to fill her life. And with that shift, the warmth between them returned freely, joyfully, naturally. You see, true connection cannot be forced. It flourishes best when it's given space to breathe. When you stand emotionally strong on your own, you give your children the gift of seeing you not as someone clinging to them for meaning, but as someone whose life is already rich, vibrant, and inspiring. It's not easy. It takes courage to stop waiting by the phone. It takes strength to build a life that's bigger than the spaces others leave empty. But I promise you this. The stronger and more fulfilled you are within yourself, the more naturally your children will be drawn back to you with admiration, not obligation. Now, once you reclaim your emotional independence, the next powerful step is to draw clear lines to set the kind of boundaries that quietly but firmly teach others how to treat you. Let's explore that together. Let me ask you something gently from one heart to another. When was the last time you told someone clearly, firmly, and without apology what was not okay? Not with anger, not with shouting, but with calm certainty. I deserve to be spoken to with respect. My time matters too. I will not allow myself to be treated that way. For many parents, especially as we grow older, setting boundaries feels uncomfortable, almost selfish. We're used to giving to forgiving, to stretching ourselves a little thinner just to keep the peace. But here's the quiet truth that few people say aloud. People, even your children, will only treat you as well as you require them to. If you allow them to interrupt you, they will. If you allow them to dismiss your feelings, they will. If you allow disrespect to go unchallenged, it becomes the new normal. And not because they are bad people, but because human beings, all of us, naturally push against unspoken boundaries until they are clearly and lovingly reinforced. I once knew a man named Robert, a retired businessman, sharp as a tack, kind to the bone. In his career, Robert had commanded respect without ever raising his voice. But with his grown children, he struggled. They interrupted him in conversations. They disregarded his advice. They even criticized the way he chose to spend his retirement. At first, Robert brushed it off. They're busy, he told himself. It's not worth making a fuss. But over time, a deep weariness grew inside him. He realized that every time he stayed silent, he was teaching them that it was okay. One day after a particularly dismissive dinner conversation, Robert made a decision. Enough. The next time his son interrupted, Robert simply said, "I'll continue when you're ready to listen." And then he waited silent but steady. The next time his daughter dismissed his opinion, he replied warmly but firmly, "You don't have to agree with me, but I expect to be heard with respect. No anger, no drama, just calm, unwavering self-respect." At first, his children resisted. They were surprised, even a little defensive. But over time, something shifted. They saw that their father wasn't asking for respect. He was expecting it, and he was modeling it by the way he treated himself. And because of that, their behavior began to change. You see, setting boundaries isn't about creating distance. It's about creating clarity, about teaching others through consistent action how to treat you with the honor you deserve. It doesn't mean you love them less. It doesn't mean you're starting a war. It simply means you love yourself enough to say, "Here is where I end and you begin." And within that space, respect must live. If you're feeling disrespected, overlooked, or diminished, it's time to ask yourself a brave question. Have I been allowing this without realizing it? Because here's the empowering part. The moment you set a boundary, calmly, firmly, consistently, you invite others to rise to meet it, and even if they resist at first, your quiet strength will leave an imprint they can't ignore. Now that you know how to draw your line with dignity, let's talk about another hidden trap. The quiet way we sometimes lose respect by giving too much without ever requiring appreciation. Let's move forward together. Giving is in your nature. It's part of who you are. A parent, a nurturer, a heart that has always found joy in providing for those you love. For years, maybe even decades, you've given. Your time, your energy, your patience, your resources, your unwavering support. And you gave it freely without expecting anything in return, because that's what love does. But somewhere along the way, a painful shift may have happened. Instead of gratitude, you met expectation. Instead of appreciation, you faced entitlement. And every time you gave more, hoping to bridge the growing gap, the appreciation didn't deepen. It faded. Here's the uncomfortable truth many parents face. When you give too much without requiring respect or appreciation, you don't build stronger bonds, you build expectations. What was once a gift becomes in their eyes an obligation. And once that happens, your generosity loses its meaning, not just to them, but to yourself. I once knew a man named George, a kind, hardworking father who had always been there for his children. Whenever they needed money, he provided. Whenever they needed help moving, fixing things, watching grandchildren, he dropped everything. He rearranged his life again and again to accommodate their needs, believing that his constant support would naturally breed respect and closeness. But instead, something heartbreaking happened. His children began to expect his help. Not ask for it, expect it. There were no more thank yous, no more gestures of gratitude, just more demands. And when George finally needed something, when he asked for a ride to a doctor's appointment, a little help fixing up his house, they were too busy. At first, George felt devastated, then angry, and then finally clear. He realized that by giving without boundaries, he had unintentionally taught them to take his efforts for granted. So he made a difficult but powerful choice. He stopped overextending himself. He still loved his children dearly. He was still willing to help, but only when it was asked respectfully and when he truly wanted to. He began saying no when it didn't feel right. He stopped offering before being asked. He stopped tying his worth to how much he could do for them. At first, his children were confused. Some were even frustrated. But slowly they began to notice something. George's time and energy were valuable, not infinite. And because of that, when he did choose to give, it meant something again. You see, true generosity is a gift, not a guarantee. And when people understand that your kindness is precious, not automatic, they appreciate it far more. If you find yourself constantly giving to your children, even when they don't acknowledge or respect it, ask yourself gently, am I giving out of love or out of a quiet hope that they will finally see my worth? Because you are already worthy, you always have been. You don't need to buy their respect with favors, gifts, or sacrifices. You only need to respect yourself enough to give from fullness, not from longing. Now, once you stop giving beyond your heart's capacity, there's one final beautiful step that ties all of this together, building a life so rich and vibrant that your children can't help but see you differently. Let's discover that together. There's a tender truth that many parents hesitate to admit even to themselves. For years, maybe decades, your life revolved around your children, their needs, their dreams, their happiness. You were the steady ground beneath their feet, the safe place they could always return to, and you gave that role everything you had. But now, as time has moved forward and their lives have grown bigger, careers, marriages, families of their own, you may find yourself standing in a quieter home wondering, where do I fit now? What is my purpose when they don't need me in the same way anymore? It's a painful question, and if you're not careful, it can lead you down a path of quietly waiting for visits, waiting for calls, waiting to be needed again. But here's the truth you deserve to hear. Your life is still yours. Your story is not over. And one of the most powerful things you can do both for yourself and for your relationship with your children is to build a vibrant, meaningful life outside of them. Not a life that excludes them, but a life that isn't dependent on them to feel full. I once knew a woman named Alana, a spirited, funny widow in her late 70s. After her husband passed away, she poured all of her energy into her grown children's lives, checking in constantly, giving advice they hadn't asked for, offering help even when they didn't need it. At first, she thought she was staying connected, but over time, her children started pulling away. The more she clung, the more distant they became. Eleanor felt crushed, rejected, lonely, until one day a friend gave her a simple, life-changing piece of advice. Stop making them the center of your world. Make yourself the center again. And so with courage and trembling hands, Eleanor began to rebuild. She joined a book club. She signed up for a painting class. She started traveling with friends, little weekend getaways to places she had always wanted to see. She volunteered at the local community center, reading to children. She picked up old hobbies she hadn't touched in years, gardening, sewing, even dancing. Slowly, the empty spaces in her life began to fill, not with waiting, but with living. And something beautiful happened. Her children started calling more. They asked about her adventures. They listened with admiration as she talked about her busy, full life. They respected her not because she demanded it, but because she radiated strength, joy, and independence. You see, nothing draws people closer than a spirit that shines on its own. When you live with passion, curiosity, and purpose, your children will see it. They will feel the difference, and they will be drawn not to a parent who waits anxiously for scraps of attention, but to a person who inspires them simply by living fully. If you want your children to value your presence, value your own life first, because when you build a world that is rich and vibrant even without them, you give them something beautiful to come home to, not out of obligation, but out of love. Now that you've discovered the power of living fully for yourself, let's take a moment to reflect on everything we've learned and tie it all together in a final uplifting message. Let's move forward. If you've stayed with me until now, I want to take a moment to honor you, because what we've talked about today isn't easy. It touches tender places where love, disappointment, hope, and heartache all intertwine. And yet here you are, still standing, still willing to grow, still choosing to love, even when it's complicated. That in itself is a kind of strength that deserves deep respect. Today we've walked through 6 powerful shifts, not quick fixes, not magic words, but true inner transformations that can rebuild the foundation of respect between you and your children. Let's take a moment to remember them. Stop chasing their approval. Respect doesn't come from bending, it comes from standing tall in who you are. Don't argue, lead by example. Your dignity speaks louder than any raised voice ever could. Withdraw emotional dependence. You are already whole, already worthy, without needing constant validation. Set boundaries and enforce them. Respect grows where clarity lives. Stop giving without appreciation. Your kindness is a gift, not an obligation. Build a life outside of them. Your story doesn't end with their absence. It flourishes with your fullness. Each of these shifts is a piece of a larger truth. The most powerful way to inspire respect is to embody it first. When you treat yourself with tenderness, strength, and unwavering dignity, you teach the world, including your children, how to treat you. And here's something beautiful to hold close. Even if change doesn't happen overnight, Even if your children take time to adjust, the changes you make within yourself will ripple outward. They will feel it. They will notice, because a person who walks with quiet confidence, clear boundaries, and a heart full of life is magnetic. You don't have to chase love or demand respect. You only have to live in a way that commands it naturally by simply being true to yourself. And no matter where your relationship with your children stands today, strained, distant, close, or somewhere in between, you have the power to shift it gently, steadily, lovingly, starting with you. Remember, you are not invisible. You are not forgotten. You are not powerless. You are the living legacy of every lesson you taught, every sacrifice you made, and every ounce of love you gave. That legacy still shines in you and through you. So take heart, stand tall, and trust that the respect you seek begins and ends with the beautiful, resilient soul staring back at you in the mirror. If today's message touched your heart, I'd love to hear from you. Please leave a comment below and share one small shift you're committed to making. It could inspire someone else walking the same journey. And if you found value in this video, please consider giving it a like and subscribing to our channel. Your support helps us continue creating heartfelt content to inform, uplift, and walk alongside you. Thank you for being here truly. Until next time, take gentle care of yourself. You deserve it.